Hello and welcome. Today we will be discussing the SDK for InsightCM 1.0. Now, just to let you know what's coming, we're going to divide this video series, into two main parts. In the first part, we'll have a few videos that just go through slides that talk about some key concepts about the SDK as it's related to InsightCM. In the second half, we'll have a video series where I walk through the development required to add an architecture to InsightCM using the SDK. Now, a couple things. First, the SDK for 1.0 the information here will only be relevant for InsightCM 1.0. When InsightCM 2.0 comes out, we'll have to do this again because the SDK will look pretty different. Also, the SDK for 1.0 is not widely available on the web. It's something that you have to talk to someone at corporate about, talk about your application and get approval for. But if you are someone who has the SDK and want to know how it works, then this video series is for you. So to begin, let's talk about InsightCM for a moment. When I use the term InsightCM, I'm actually talking about a collection of 4 subsystems. We have our Systems Manager, our Data Explorer, our Server, and the CRIO images. So the Systems Manager is responsible for configuring your CRIOs and managing the images that are on the CRIOs. The Data Explorer is responsible for viewing your data from all the CRIOs, their waveforms, their spectrums, and their trends. The server is responsible for pushing configuration and for collecting data files, and the CRIOs are responsible for data collection. Now, InsightCM is kind of a unique product in the sense that it's a turnkey application. Like the CRIO, for instance, historically we would sell CRIOs to people and they would be responsible for developing the software that ran on them. But not with InsightCM. With InsightCM, every piece of the product is turnkey. In fact, we do even sell with Insight, what comes with Insight are images that run on the CRIOs. These images have their own behaviors, they have their own features, they have their own supported hardware. And that's true for all of these subsystems. The server has been completely developed, as has the Data Explorer and the Systems Manager, which is the web page. So what we'll talk about in this video series, though, is we do have an SDK that allows you to plug into these subsystems, or in some situations to modify their behavior or extend their behavior. And so we'll talk about each of those subsystems in order. So first of all, what is the SDK? The SDK is an interface to the server's data and its configurations. The SDK is an interface to the server's data and its configurations. So practically what this means is, like for instance with the CRIO, the SDK will give you a library of VIs which help you to transfer files, publish alarms, and tags. And also, this library of VIs will allow you to retrieve device configuration and state information from the server. So really, with respect to the CRIO, the SDK is a library of VIs, of communication VIs, allow you to talk to the server. The SDK is not so much the source code of the CRIO. The SDK isn't a mechanism for you to modify the images that come with InsightCM. Like for instance, if you are a customer and you like InsightCM, you like the CRIOs, the hardware that has been selected, you like the features that are on the hardware, you like everything that it does, but you wish that it had a GPS on it or something like that. The SDK is not a mechanism for you to take our images and add an add a CAN channel or a GPS feature or something like that. Where the SDK really shines is when you have your own data logger that you own and maintain. You have built this thing. It has all the features that you want, but you now want to add it to the InsightCM ecosystem. Like, for instance, we've had some partners who have been selling embedded monitoring solutions for years, and they would like their solution to be part of the InsightCM ecosystem. That's where the SDK was really built and designed, was to enable that use case. And the second half of this video series will be focused entirely on that. How do you take an architecture, a data logging architecture, that stands on its own, but you want it to retrieve its configuration from InsightCM, you want to push its data to InsightCM, you want it to be triggering alarms in InsightCM. That's where the SDK really shines. Now with the server again is mostly locked down. That's a turnkey piece as well. However, there's one area where you can change the behavior or extend the functionality of the server, and that's with post-acquisition analysis. And we really envision this being one of the strongest use cases for the SDK, actually. And it's this use case. So you have a customer who says, you know what, I like your CREOs, I like everything about them, I like the hardware, their sample rates, their features, I want to use the CREOs just the way they are, but I also wanted to add this special filter to the data. I wanted to do prognostics or a Hilbert transform, something that isn't part of Insight today. And so our thinking was, well, we could give you that extra analysis, but not on the CREO. Let's do it on the server. So when a file gets transferred from the CREO to the server, we could have a VI there that is automatically kicked off, that where you could just put whatever you want in it. You can put your special prognostics algorithms. You could connect to another application. You could change some properties in the TDMS file. You do whatever you want there, and the results of those algorithms could then be written back into the file or written as tags into the InsightCM server. And so in fact, with the SDK, there is a VI. If you adhere to their connector pane and call it in the correct fashion, then you can put whatever you want in that VI, and that is a point of extension for InsightCM. Now, as far as the systems manager goes, and if you recall, the system manager is a place where you configure your devices and push images. So what you'll find is that configuration pages, just in general, are tightly coupled to the devices that they're configuring. Like, for instance, in InsightCM, we have two major flavors of our CREO images. We have this periodic and event recorder, and then the transient periodic and event recorder. And we have two different configuration pages for them. And that makes sense because they have different features. And different features mean they have different configuration fields. And so when you bring a custom device into the picture, you're going to need a custom configuration page. And in fact, you can put your own configured JavaScript web page into InsightCM. But if you don't have the JavaScript skills needed to do that, we also have a mechanism for you to define a custom page through a JSON file. And the walkthrough videos will demonstrate this, as will subsequent slides. And then finally we have the Data Explorer, and I don't know if you really want to call this a part of the SDK or not, but basically if you have a custom device that is making data files and you want that data to show up in Data Explorer, then you need the TDMS files to adhere to a certain schema. And if they adhere to that schema, the channels will show up in our tree, the trends will show up in our graphs, and you can leverage all of the features of Data Explorer. And that isn't really an SDK thing, that's really a documentation thing. And we do document which properties and conventions need to be followed in order for you to leverage Data Explorer. All right, very good. In the next video, we will start talking about data flow within InsightCM.